In this video, I want to continue on with the basic settings to get us started in WP e-commerce. So we did our general settings there. We're going to move on to the presentation tab here. And again, we'll ignore the advanced theme settings over there. We'll come back to that later. Button settings. All right, there's a strange kind of choice being offered here. Add to cart versus buy now. Notice this is a radio button. We can't check both. You've got to choose between one or the other. Now, the buy now will only work if you've got PayPal Standard set up as a payment gateway, which we don't right now. But once we did, we could choose buy now. Now, the odd thing here is that this affects the entire shopping cart. So in effect, what they're saying here is choose between a shopping cart and a buy now catalog or something like that. It's a bit of an odd choice. What would be nice to see, actually, is if you could have buy now buttons turned on for particular products, ones that you think people might want to bypass the entire shopping cart, go right to the checkout. That could be handy, but in this case, we're talking about the entire site. So we're going to want to leave the add to cart button. And then there's a bit of a strange one here, hide the add to cart button. So I'm not sure, you've got add to cart chosen here, and then why would you want to hide it? Not totally sure. And in their documentation, they even admit they're not totally sure, but there is an option for it. By default, of course, it's not hidden, so we will see the add to cart button. One of the things that I didn't like so much here was documentation-wise, it's pretty weak on the page. So for example, this doesn't give me any other information about hiding the add to cart button, when I might want to use it. One like this, for example, display fancy purchase notifications. What does that mean? There's nowhere to mouse over here and get an explanation. If you go and look things up, as I happen to do on Google, you could happen to be taken to this documentation page. Remember, it's getshop.org is the name of their site for this plugin. And when I went through this, a lot of this doesn't apply anymore. It's old documentation. Now, they actually don't link to this directly on their site, but it's out there and it's in Google. In fact, this was the first thing that came up in Google. Where you actually want to go is under here, under support and documentation. And they actually have a completely separate website now for their documentation, and it's pretty good. It's quite detailed. So it's good documentation, just sometimes you might get to the wrong place. So here's my presentation settings. Now this matches what I'm seeing. It's pretty up to date with the latest version. So anyway, just to let you know, when you're looking for documentation, very little here on the page, unfortunately. All right, show product ratings. I think that would be a good thing to show, so I'm going to turn that on, and it allows visitors to rate products and so forth. Show stock availability. I'm not going to worry about stock on this particular store, so let's leave that as a no. Now, what are fancy purchase notifications? All right, these are actually little pop-ups that happen when you take an action, most importantly, when you add to cart. And it's a great little notification. I like these because they remind people that their action actually happened. You said you were going to add to cart, it did it, and it gives you some options like going directly to checkout. So I'm going to turn this on. Personally, I would leave this on by default if I was them because it's a very important function for user friendliness. Display per item shipping. Now, one of the great things in WP e-commerce is you have complete control over every single item's shipping status. You can turn it off if you're not going to have shipping on that item. Perhaps you're selling virtual products like downloadables or services, things like that don't have any shipping. So you could turn those off for individual items, right? You don't have to decide cart-wide whether to have shipping. You can do that on an individual basis. Plus, not only that, you can also say this product is going to be $2 for shipping. This product's going to be $1.50 for shipping. So it's very, very flexible that way. A lot of other plugins, you've got to buy that as an extra. So this comes with it. Now, do we want to display per item shipping when we're looking at a product? Well, of course, that's going to depend whether you're using that or not. And if you are, I would recommend having this left on because, it's going to show you this product's going to be $1, this one $1.50. It's important for people to understand that before they add it to the cart when there are differences between them. So we'll leave that turned on, even though actually we probably won't do much with per item shipping. Disable link in the title, that's off by default, and that makes a lot of sense. This is for the product page itself, okay? Why you would need to have the link turned on, because it's just going to go back to itself, right? You're on the product page, so yeah, we'll leave that disabled. Add quantity field to each product description. This is turned off by default. I'm going to turn this on because I like this in a shopping cart. If I know I want to buy 5 of an item, let me change the quantity right then and there before I add it to the cart. A lot of other people will say, well, just leave that to the cart, they can change the quantity then. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I want the quantity field to show with each product. Okay? Product page settings. Now this is for what's basically like the home page of WP e-commerce. It's called the product page. It's already been created for you, by the way, as we're going to see later. There is only one view available, all right? There's this drop down here, and it shows you purchase unavailable options, list view and grid view. Now, I'm surprised this is still a paid update. You have to pay for this plugin to have a different view, and we'll see the default view as we get to this and create some products. Grid view is kind of the norm these days, right? Items in rows and columns, but you have to buy that with WP e-commerce, and that's one of the things that I'm not so keen on with it. But anyway, if you had the plugin, if you'd bought the plugin, you would have these available. We don't have that, so it's just default view. Show a list of categories. I think that's important, so I'm going to turn that on. Select what product category you want on this products page. As I say, this is like the home page, your basic shopping page on your website. I'm going to leave that at show all products. You have some options here. You could even just show single categories once you've created some categories. The sorting of them, how are they going to display? This one shows the most recent by default. You can do it by name, by price, by dragging and dropping. We'll get into that more as we look at our catalog and how it displays. Show breadcrumbs. Yeah, I always find that handy, especially if you've got a lot of subcategories and so on. And product groups, we're not going to worry about some of these. We're going to come back to a few of these. Now, the shopping cart settings, where is the cart? Is it going to be as a page or a widget? You can't have both, apparently, in this system. And we'll come back to that. I'm going to leave it as a widget right now. Display plus postage and tax. No, I don't want to include that because I don't want to say tax is included in my pricing. Product category settings, show the description. I'll leave that turned off. Show the category thumbnails. Yes, I think that would be handy if I've got some thumbnails created. Show the count per category. I don't find that useful. Use category grid view. Yes, indeed. Images we're going to come back to in another one later on. Pagination. I'm not typically going to have pages per product, so I'm going to leave that. And then I just hit Save Changes. And we've updated some of our main presentation items for our cart. Again, a lot of these we'll come back to. We're going to make changes, but this at least can get us going.